Jos Verstappen has started his verbal attack on Red Bull by ruminating on the Dutch Grand Prix, in which his son Max Verstappen finished 20 seconds behind the victor. Verstappen took the lead at the start, but was unable to stave off Lando Norris' advances, finishing over 20 seconds behind the McLaren driver at the checkered flag. Tensions between Jos Verstappen and Red Bull head Christian Horner have been palpable this season, with the father of three-time F1 world champion Max demanding Horner's resignation during the season opener in Bahrain. With Red Bull's early form this year allowing Verstappen to claim several wins and establish a healthy championship lead, the recent drop in competitiveness has resulted in 5 consecutive races without a win for the Dutch driver, prompting Verstappen Sr. to criticize the car's development decisions. Over 20 seconds is a huge disappointment. Max never had a chance of winning, Verstappen told German publication Bild. But that's not surprising when you regress the car. With Max pointing out the faults of the RB20 as his championship advantage over Norris begins to dwindle, his father believes Red Bull must respond and quickly, and mentions how recent personnel moves may potentially be having an impact. That says it all. The team took the wrong turn several times, he said. Internally, we should hold up a mirror to ourselves and not always gloss over everything. It's time, if it's not already too late, to question ourselves. The good people are leaving the team. I'm very unhappy with what's happening. With Norris and Oscar Piastri appearing to have the fastest vehicle on the grid, McLaren appears to be the favourites win the Constructors' Championship, as Red Bull's lead shrinks with 9 race weekends remaining. You can't sugarcoat it anymore. The situation is serious, Verstappen gravely said. Max won't be happy with having a car like this. Now it's up to Horner to get the team back on track. Speaking to Dutch publication De Telegraaf, Verstappen remarked of the team's experimentation with prior RB20 specifications. The fact that you have to go back to the car from the beginning of this year says enough. Meanwhile, Sky F1 journalist Martin Brundle believes the Red Bull driver may have tried to exaggerate his car's deficit by falling so far behind Norris in order to shock his colleagues. I would hazard a guess that was not as fast as Max could go, Brundle said. He knew he couldn't beat Lando, and dropping back a bit like that, it's going to give the factory a hurry up, isn't it? I'd be pretty sure of that. Meanwhile, Verstappen sent a very uncommon reply via X, previously Twitter, in response to a poster's criticism. All those sensational messages like alarm phase 1 at Red Bull because Lando Norris finishes 23 seconds before Max Verstappen, read the comment. There was no need for Max to go all out. Whether you finish second at 4 or at 23 sec, you get the same number of points. Verstappen Sr. responded succinctly. Then you haven't understood it yet. But how did Red Bull got here? They were still the best team at the start of the season, winning races and getting better lap timing than any team. Red Bull's campaign began to falter in May after encountering a series of bumpier courses, with the Monaco Grand Prix proving as a particularly challenging task. Rather than a single weakness over bumps and curbs, Verstappen argues that successive races have shown new issues in keeping the car's balance, which was previously a Red Bull strength. This appears to have slowed the RB20 speed while also hurting tyre wear. It wasn't there in the first few races, but something in the car has made it more difficult to drive. It's very hard to pinpoint where that is coming from at the moment. And that is then hurting, of course, our one-lap performance, but also our long run. The whole weekend has been the same limitations. I had pretty much the same balance from FP1 all the way to the race, so it's just very hard to solve at the moment. It just seems like we are too slow, but also quite bad on degradation at the moment. That's a bit weird because I think the last few years normally we've been quite good on that. So something has been going wrong lately with the car that we need to understand and we need to quickly try to improve. It's just not a connected balance, front or rear. After the shocking downfall of Red Bull, reporters found some explanations about their losing streak. Martin Brundle of Sky F1 believes Max Verstappen may have purposely slowed down at the Dutch Grand Prix to convey a message to Red Bull. Verstappen failed to win his home race at Zandvoort for the first time since the circuit was added to the F1 calendar in 2021, finishing 22.88 seconds behind McLaren's Lando Norris, the largest margin of victory to date in F1 2024. Brundle feels Verstappen was not racing as fast as he could go when the race was lost, purposefully slowing down to give Red Bull the hurry up after only won 3 of the previous 10 races. We need to understand where the deficit is. I think we've learned quite a lot this weekend, but you can see the pace that they had at this track was outstanding. So, we need to obviously understand how we can improve performance on our. However, Sky F1 analyst Brundle does not believe Verstappen was genuinely 23 seconds slower than Norris over the Dutch GP racecourse. Instead, with McLaren shining in the F1 2024 development fight and Red Bull's dominance fading, Brundle believes Verstappen eased off to send a hurry up to the Red Bull facility to change the tide. I would hazard a guess that was not as fast as Max could go. He knew he couldn't beat Lando, and dropping back a bit like that, it's going to give the factory a hurry up, isn't it? I'd be pretty sure of that. Fellow Sky F1 pundit Naomi Schiff urged Red Bull to address the RB20's issues, arguing that a more disrupted race weekend, such as the one at Zandvoort with rain-soaked practice sessions and a chunk of FP3 lost due to Logan Sargent's fiery crash, makes it more difficult for Red Bull to find that sweet spot. They have a car at the moment that isn't just smooth sailing, as it has been in the past, said Schiff. And they have to get on top of that, because when a weekend like this comes along and you have curtailed sessions or rainy sessions, as Martin says, it's tougher for them to get the setup in the sweet spot, and then they lose out, and they lost out quite a lot when it comes to pace. And after all the employees that left Red Bull in the last months, now they're about to lose even one of their younger drivers. Lawson, a racing driver on the sidelines of Formula 1, might wind himself on the grid at this weekend's Italian Grand Prix if negotiations between Williams and Red Bull are successful. According to various reports, Williams and Red Bull are in serious conversations, with Williams interested in acquiring the Kiwi's services as a potential replacement for the failing Logan Sargent. Williams squad head James Vowles is said to be in communication with Red Bull boss Christian Horner about the possibilities, as Red Bull prepares to make a decision on Lawson's future. At the time of publication, no decisions had been made by any of the parties concerned, but it is understood that the call will need to be made fast, possibly within the next 24 hours, in order to have Lawson prepared and ready for the Williams seat, both metaphorically and literally. Speaking to the media at the Dutch Grand Prix, Red Bull CEO Christian Horner indicated interest in loaning out the Kiwi, assuming arrangements can be agreed upon. It depends on which terms, and if we needed him back, would we get him back, Horner said. Certainly, if they needed a driver next weekend, we'd be open to that. But that's a Williams question, rather than one for us to answer. What do you think? Is Red Bull slowly collapsing with all this key players leaving? And what about Max Verstappen? How will all of this affect his future decision? Let us know what you think in the comments down below.